This pandemic has changed everything for you, for me, and for President Trump. More than 155,000 Americans have now died. The economy has cratered. But as the nation deals with the horrific fallout, President Trump has brought another issue to the fore, the integrity of the election. And this week, I escaped my home office for a day to cover him in action on the road, traveling on Air Force One to West Texas on Wednesday as part of the press pool. Up close, it's clear the president is scrambling to jumpstart his campaign, which has fallen behind Vice President Biden in the polls. And speaking in front of fracking fields, he railed against the Democrats, against protesters in cities where he has sent federal agents, and he vowed to protect the suburbs. And on Thursday, he turned to brinkmanship over the guardrail of democracy. He suggested the election be delayed after claiming without evidence that voting by mail would lead to fraud. The president does not have the authority to move the date of the election, which is set by Congress and has actually been fixed since the 19th century, but he can provoke. And his allies tell me behind the scenes he won't stop doing so with just 94 days to go. Joining us tonight are four terrific reporters: Kaitlan Collins, White House correspondent for CNN; Geoff Bennett, White House correspondent for NBC News; John Dickerson, 60 Minutes correspondent, political analyst for CBS News, and author of The Hardest Job in the World, The American Presidency; and Susan Page, Washington bureau chief for USA Today. Geoff, when you talk to your sources in the White House about this election standoff, what do you hear? What is the end game?
Well, you know, Republican sources I've talked to were quick to dismiss the president's notion of delaying the election, something that you rightly point out he does not have the authority to do, dismissing that as more presidential Trumpian bluster and bravado. But look, Democrats say that it's evidence of the fact that this president will stop at nothing to question the validity of an election that at the current moment he appears to be on track to losing. And they also say it's no idle threat because a top Trump donor who he appointed as Postmaster General has made a number of budget cuts and changes at the post office that right now have resulted in about a 2-day delay in the delivery of mail, even with express mail. And there are postal workers who say that if that does not change come Election Day, there could be chaos because in some, 34 states, if completed ballots are not returned in time, they're invalidated, Bob.
Kaitlan, what are you hearing?
I mean, Geoff is right. Not a single major Republican has agreed with the president on this. And I think he realized it was a mistake that no one was going to support him on, because today when he was asked about it, he said actually he would like to move the election up, that he is so confident that he's going to win. He'd like to move it ahead a few days, which of course is not going to happen either. But his allies viewed this as a mistake, a political mistake, because not only is he not legally able to do this, but they said it revealed his weak standing and how even he is admitting that to himself, though he's denied that internal polls have him down. Campaign sources say they do, and they say that by saying he wants to delay the election, it's the president confirming that he's fully aware that he is trailing Joe Biden in several of these major polls. And instead of portraying the same kind of confidence that you've heard from campaign officials that the election is still a good 190 days away, the president was admitting that he's worried.
Susan, what's the significance of the president's comments coming on the same week Representative John Lewis has his funeral in Atlanta?
You know, I sort of felt that that Thursday crystallized the situation of chaos that we have in this country. He started out with an economic report, the worst economic decline since we started keeping records. 16 minutes later, the president tweets that perhaps we should delay the election. And then in that afternoon, a service that featured 3 American presidents from both parties speaking in honor of an American hero. And I thought it did 2 things. I thought it underscored in what perilous times we are compared with before. Also, the resilience that I think Americans believe we have and hope we have in a turbulent time, because no one was more optimistic about the possibilities of America than John Lewis was.
John, help us step back here. You've written a book about the presidency. Does history offer us any guidance about this moment?
Well, what history tells us is what we should expect from a president. You know, the hallmark of the American system is the free, fair election that creates a peaceful transfer of power. And elections are how you have that peaceful transfer of power. And a president is a steward of that system, and which means he must protect it. He must work as hard as he can to keep it secure and also to keep people's faith in that system, because that system will exist after he is out of office. And so that's what the president's duties are by the office he holds. And so for a sitting president to try to undermine all of that for his own personal political gain is wildly at odds with his office. And it's also an echo of what he did in 2016, which is when the polls looked bad, he talked about a rigged election. And to go back to Susan's point, he's doing this on a day where he was unavailable to give a eulogy for John Lewis because of his relationship with the black community, and just that is not a part of his presidency. So when you measure what he is doing against the standards of the presidency and what we would expect, there is a vast distance.